First, you want to take off the tire, and then you want to take off that little star bolt that is on the rotor. Whenever this is done, you want to take off the brake caliper. There is bolts behind it, 2 of them, that should be able to loosen and take it off. What I usually do is I zip tie it to something up there. See, I zip tie it to the spring thing just to hold it out of your way. After that, you want to take off the brake pads and then take off the thing holding the brake pads. There's 2 bolts behind it to take the thing off holding the brake pads. Whenever that is done, you should be able to take off the rotor. Now, the bolt in the middle of the wheel bearing, you want to loosen. You don't want to take it off yet, but you want to loosen it and hit it a couple of times with the sledgehammer. The sledgehammer is mainly to loosen it on the back that's holding it. That way you can take off the other bolts easier. After all of that, there should be 3 bolts on the back in a triangle form, 1 on the top, 2 on the sides. You loosen those up, take those off. That is where roughly one of the bolts is. As you see here, we needed a sledgehammer to loosen the bolt a little bit. Pushing in the middle like he was with the sledgehammer also helps create it to where it gives you more space to work with loosening the bolts. Now that we have the bottom 2 loosened, we're going to loosen the top one. Turning your wheel also helps being able to loosen your bolts. Now that we have that off, we can take off the ABS cord, which goes all the way up in there. You need like a flathead or like a small little needle thing to like pull it out. There are 3 clips attached to the car to hold the ABS line, and that is one of them. We already took off the first one before we disconnected them, and the second one is gray, which is also going to be removed. Once that is removed, you finish taking off the middle bolt, and then take off the rotor. You have to hit it a couple times with the sledgehammer. There should also be a washer behind the nut in the center of the wheel bearing that you should also make sure comes off. After that, you want a flat device to separate the wheel bearing off of the car. Make sure not to bend that flimsy piece of metal behind the wheel bearing. Now once you have the new wheel bearing, you want to feed the ABS cable through the flimsy piece of metal. That way you can be attached to the car easier, and that's how it's supposed to go. So now once you have it on, you want to hand tight the bolts back into it and make sure it's lined up and not cross threaded. And then you want to attach the ABS cord to the car so that you don't forget to do it and so it can be out of the way. And if you didn't already take that black piece off that he's taking off, take it off, because most wheel bearings come with a new cord and new spot for that. Make sure you have those clips pushed in too. Now, once you have that done, you want to drill or whatever you have, tighten all 3 bolts, and then use a wrench and make sure it's tight and to the proper standards. Pushing the center moves that big black round thing out of the way a little bit, pushes it back. Now, after you have all the bolts on, you can tighten the middle. Now, after you have it tightened, line up the rotor to the hole for the star bolt to where you can tighten that back up and put that back on. At first I would hand tighten it using the tool, and then I would go to using a wrench or whatever it is you're using. I have no idea what that's called, but when you're done you want to put the brake holder back on and tighten the bolts really good. And then you want to put on the brake pads, making sure they go on the right way. At first we put them on the wrong way, but then we move them around and put them on the right way. Now whenever that is done, you can put the brake caliper back on. I would start off hand tightening the bolts first, and then drilling them or wrenching them or doing whatever you're doing to tighten them all the way up. Now you want to put a flathead in the rotor like that, and then make sure the middle is really tightened using a long wrench or whatever you have. And after that, you can put your tire back on and your wheel bearing should work. Thanks for watching.